I'm sitting in the kitchen, the clock ticking past midnight, the house so quiet I can hear the hum of the fridge. My hands are wrapped around a cold coffee mug, the contents long gone, but I can't bring myself to move. It's been like this for weeks. Sleepless nights, a gnawing ache in my chest that won't let up. Something's wrong. I can't pinpoint it, but it's there, like a shadow moving just out of sight. My wife, Claire, is upstairs, asleep in our bed, her soft breathing probably filling the room. At least I think she's asleep. I don't know anymore. I don't know much of anything. My name's Daniel. I'm 38, a structural engineer with a decent job, a mortgage on a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs, and a life that, on paper, looks like it's ticking all the right boxes. Claire and I have been married for 12 years. No kids, not by choice but by circumstance. Biology's a cruel game sometimes. We've built a life together, though. Vacations in Italy, late-night talks over wine, a shared love for old jazz records. She's my anchor, my best friend. Or she was. Now I'm not so sure. Started small, the cracks. A month ago, maybe 2, Claire began staying late at work. She's a marketing manager for a mid-sized firm downtown, and overtime's not unusual, especially when they're pitching to new clients. But these late nights felt different. She'd come home distracted, her eyes avoiding mine, her phone clutched a little too tightly. When I'd ask about her day, she'd give me vague answers, a quick smile that didn't reach her eyes, and then change the subject. Just a long day, Dan, she'd say, brushing past me to pour a glass of water or head straight for the shower. The shower thing, that was new. She'd never been one to shower right after work, not unless she'd been to the gym, and her gym bag hadn't left the closet in weeks. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Maybe a big project, maybe pressure from her boss. I tried to be supportive. I'd cook dinner, her favorite, lemon herb chicken with roasted potatoes, hoping to coax a real conversation out of her. But she'd pick at her food, scroll through her phone, and mumble something about being tired. I'd watch her, trying to read the lines of her face, the way her dark hair fell over her shoulders, searching for the woman I'd married. She was still beautiful, sharp cheekbones, hazel eyes that used to light up when she laughed. But there was a distance now, a wall I couldn't breach. Then came the phone calls. She'd step outside to take them, her voice low, the words indistinct. Once, I caught her in the backyard, pacing under the oak tree, her free hand gesturing wildly. When she saw me through the glass door, she froze, ended the call abruptly, and came inside with a forced laugh. Just a client being a pain, she said. But her cheeks were flushed, and she wouldn't meet my gaze. I didn't push. I should have, but I didn't. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I trusted her. Trust is the foundation, right? That's what we'd always said. But the signs kept piling up, like stones in a cairn marking a path I didn't want to follow. Her perfume changed. Something musky, expensive, not the floral scent she'd worn for years. Her wardrobe shifted too. Tighter dresses, new heels, lingerie I'd never seen before, tucked away in the back of her drawer like a secret. I found it one morning while looking for a pair of socks, the black lace catching my eye. My stomach twisted. She hadn't worn anything like that for me in months, maybe years. I started paying closer attention, hating myself for it. I'd check her coat pockets when she wasn't looking, finding receipts for coffee shops we'd never been to together, a parking stub from a part of town she had no reason to visit. Once, I saw a text notification flash on her phone while she was in the shower. It was from someone named Jay, just a single letter. The message was gone by the time she came back, and I didn't have her passcode. Could have asked, but what would I have said? Hey, honey, who's Jay? And why are you hiding your phone like it's a bomb? I wasn't ready for that fight. Not yet. The worst was the way she touched me, or didn't. We used to be close, physically, emotionally. A hand on my arm, a kiss on the cheek, a hug that lingered. Now her touches were perfunctory, like she was checking a box. When we made love, it felt mechanical, her mind somewhere else. I'd lie awake afterward, staring at the ceiling, her back turned to me, wondering what I'd done wrong. Was it me? Was I not enough? I started working out more, Bought new clothes, tried to be funnier, more attentive. Nothing changed. Then came the night that broke me open. It was a Thursday 2 weeks ago. Claire said she had a team dinner, some celebration for landing a big account. I offered to pick her up, but she waved me off, saying she'd take an Uber. She left around 6, wearing a red dress that hugged her curves. Her hair swept up, a necklace I'd given her for our 5th anniversary glinting at her throat. I watched her go, a knot in my gut, and spent the evening trying to distract myself with a book I couldn't focus on. She didn't come home until 2 a.m. I was still awake, sitting in the dark living room, the TV on mute. I heard her key in the lock, her heels clicking on the hardwood. She didn't turn on the light, didn't call out to see if I was up. She tiptoed upstairs, and I followed, quiet as a ghost. From the hallway, I saw her in our bedroom, slipping out of the dress. Her hair was mussed, her lipstick smudged. There was a mark on her neck, faint but unmistakable, like a thumbprint in clay. My heart stopped. I backed away, went downstairs, and sat on the couch until dawn, my mind screaming. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, hummed a tune, kissed me on the forehead before heading to work. I stood there, numb, watching her car pull out of the driveway. That's when I knew. She was betraying me. Not just my trust, but our life, our vows, everything we'd built. And I had no idea who with. I could have confronted her then. I could have shouted, demanded answers, thrown the evidence in her face. But I didn't. Instead, I started digging. I needed to know the truth, every ugly detail, before I decided what to do. I wasn't just hurt. I was furious, a slow-burning rage that grew with every lie she told. I wanted to catch her, to see it with my own eyes, to know exactly how far she'd gone. I began tracking her movements. I'd check her location on the app we shared, though she turned it off half the time now. I'd drive by her office on late nights, looking for her car in the lot. It was rarely there. One evening, I followed her. She said she was meeting a girlfriend for drinks, but her car ended up at a hotel downtown, a sleek glass building with valet parking. I watched from across the street as she got out, her coat pulled tight, her head down. A man met her at the entrance. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair. He put a hand on her lower back, guiding her inside. They didn't look around, didn't see me. I sat in my car for hours, my hands shaking, until they came out again, her arm looped through his. They kissed, brief but familiar, before she got in her car and drove home. I didn't follow her that time. Couldn't. I drove to a park, sat on a bench, and stared at the stars until my eyes burned. His face was seared into my mind. I didn't know his name, but I knew he was real, flesh and blood, stealing what was mine. And Claire, she wasn't just slipping away. She was choosing him over me. The next day, I started planning. Not revenge, not yet, but answers. I needed to know who he was, how long this had been going on, what she saw in him that I didn't have. I bought a small GPS tracker, the kind you stick under a car. I felt sick doing it, like I was betraying her in my own way, but I had to know. I attached it to her sedan one night while she slept, the device clicking into place like a lock on a cage. I downloaded an app to monitor her phone, though it took days to get past her passcode. When I finally did, I found deleted messages, encrypted chats, photos I wished I'd never seen. Her with him, smiling, her eyes bright in a way they hadn't been with me in years. His name was James. I learned it from an email she hadn't deleted, a reservation confirmation for a weekend getaway they'd planned. James Harper, a lawyer at a firm across town. I looked him up online, found his LinkedIn, his polished headshot, his smug grin. He was older than me, mid-40s, divorced, no kids. His profile was full of buzzwords: leadership, innovation, results-driven. I hated him instantly, a visceral loathing that made my skin crawl. I kept digging, piecing together their affair like a puzzle. They'd been meeting for at least 4 months, maybe longer. Hotels, restaurants, his apartment. She'd lied about work trips, girls' nights, even a weekend she said she spent with her sister. Her sister hadn't seen her in months. Every lie was a knife, but I didn't stop. Couldn't. I needed to understand why. What had I missed? What had I failed to give her? By now, I was barely sleeping, barely eating. My work suffered. My colleagues noticing the bags under my eyes, my short temper. I didn't care. My world had narrowed to Claire and James, to the betrayal that consumed me. I stopped trying to win her back. I stopped cooking dinners, stopped asking about her day. She didn't seem to notice. She was too wrapped up in her secret, her double life. But I wasn't done. I had the truth, or most of it. Now, I needed to decide what came next. Confrontation? Divorce? Or something else? Something that would make her feel the pain she'd inflicted on me. I didn't know yet, but the rage inside me was growing. A beast pacing its cage, waiting for the door to open. Whatever I did, it would be deliberate, precise, and devastating. She'd broken me, and I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. The days blurred into a haze of obsession. I woke each morning with a weight in my chest, a mix of dread and determination that drove me forward. My life, once a steady rhythm of work, home, and Claire, had fractured into a single-minded pursuit. To know every detail of her betrayal and to plan a response that would leave her as shattered as I was. The GPS tracker on her car pinged relentlessly, mapping her secret world. The app on her phone fed me fragments of her conversations with James, though she was careful, using coded language and deleting most of their chats. But I was patient. I had time, and I had rage, a cold, sharp-edged thing that kept me focused. I started building a dossier, a grim catalog of their affair. Hotel receipts, restaurant reservations, screenshots of text messages I'd recovered from her phone's cloud backup. I printed photos from her deleted files. Her and James at a rooftop bar, her laughing in a way I hadn't seen in years, his hand resting on her thigh. I kept it all in a locked box under my desk, hidden behind old tax documents. Every piece was a brick in the wall I was constructing, not to keep her out, but to trap her in the consequences of her choices. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but the act of collecting evidence gave me a sense of control, a lifeline in the chaos. Claire, oblivious, carried on with her double life. She'd come home from work with stories about meetings and deadlines, her voice light, her eyes avoiding mine. She'd kiss me absently, her lips cool, and I'd force a smile, swallowing the bile that rose in my throat. I played the part of the trusting husband, but inside, I was a coiled spring, ready to snap. I stopped touching her, stopped initiating anything beyond small talk. If she noticed, she didn't say. Maybe she was relieved. Maybe she was too lost in James to care. I needed to know more about him. James Harper wasn't just a name anymore. He was the architect of my ruin. I spent evenings digging into his life, scouring the internet for every scrap I could find. His law firm's website listed him as a partner, specializing in corporate litigation. He had a sleek, professional Instagram, all tailored suits and charity galas. But his personal life was murkier. A divorce 3 years ago, no alimony disputes, no kids. His ex-wife, Laura, had a sparse online presence, but I found her on a community forum for book clubs, of all things. She'd posted once, months back, about rebuilding after a toxic marriage. No details, but the subtext was clear. James wasn't the saint he presented to the world. I went deeper, crossing lines I never thought I would. I created a fake email account and sent a phishing attempt to his work address, hoping to snag his login credentials. It didn't work. He was too smart or too paranoid. But I did manage to find his home address through a public records search. He lived in a high-rise condo downtown, the kind with a doorman and floor-to-ceiling windows. I drove by one night, parking across the street, watching the lights in his unit on the 14th floor. I imagined Claire there, in his bed, and my hands tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I didn't go inside. Not yet. The more I learned, the more my anger shifted from Claire to James. She was my wife, yes, but he was the interloper, the one who'd seen an opening and taken it. I started following him, too, when I could. I'd take a long lunch break and tail him from his office to a coffee shop or a gym. He was predictable, arrogant in his routine, striding through the city like he owned it. I hated his walk, the way he carried himself, the way he smiled at strangers. I hated that he had what was mine. One afternoon, I saw them together. I'd followed Claire to a park on the edge of town, a place we used to go for picnics when we were first married. She met James on a bench by the lake, her hair catching the sunlight. They didn't touch at first, just talked, their heads close. Then she leaned into him, her hand on his arm, and he kissed her forehead. It was intimate, familiar, like they'd done it 1,000 times. I watched from my car, hidden behind tinted windows, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I wanted to get out, to scream, to drag him off that bench and make him bleed. But I didn't. I took photos instead, my hands shaking, the camera app clicking silently. Evidence. Always more evidence. That night, I couldn't look at Claire. She came home late, smelling of that musky perfume, and tried to start a conversation about a new client at work. I nodded, mumbled responses, and excused myself to the garage, where I punched a heavy bag until my knuckles were raw. The pain felt good, real, a counterpoint to the numbness spreading through me. I was losing myself, but I couldn't stop. I was too far gone. Then came the breakthrough. I'd been monitoring Claire's phone for weeks, and one evening, while she was in the bath, I saw a notification from a calendar app she rarely used. It was a shared event with James, titled Weekend Getaway. They were planning 2 nights at a cabin in the mountains, an hour outside the city. The details were sparse, but the implication was clear. A romantic escape, just the two of them. My stomach churned. I memorized the dates, the location, and deleted the notification from her phone before she could see I'd accessed it. The cabin was a rental, listed on a vacation site. I found it online, a secluded A-frame with a hot tub and a view of the valley. Perfect for lovers, the listing said. I felt sick but kept reading. I booked the same cabin for the weekend before theirs, using a fake name and a prepaid credit card. I needed to see it, to walk the space where they planned to betray me further. I told Claire I had a work trip, a lie she accepted without question, and drove up alone. The cabin was everything the listing promised. Isolated, surrounded by pines, the kind of place where no one would hear you scream. I walked through it, imagining them there. Claire in the kitchen, James by the fireplace, their laughter filling the space. I sat on the bed, ran my hands over the quilt, and felt the rage boil over. This was where they'd planned to take what was left of my life and burn it to the ground. I couldn't let that happen. I started planning not just to confront them but to destroy them. Divorce wasn't enough. I wanted Claire to feel the weight of her betrayal, to lose something she valued as much as I'd valued her. And James, he needed to pay too, in a way that hit him where it hurt most. His reputation, his career, his smug, perfect life. I spent hours in the cabin, sketching out ideas, discarding the ones that felt too small, too fleeting. I wanted something permanent, something that would haunt them both. Back home, I kept up the facade. Claire was happier now, probably because her getaway was approaching. She'd hum while cooking, leave her phone out more often, as if she'd grown careless in her excitement. I used that to my advantage, gathering more evidence. A text from James about the cabin, a photo of a new dress she'd bought for the trip. I printed everything, added it to my dossier, and locked it away. The box was getting heavy, a physical manifestation of my pain. I started researching James's professional life more closely. His law firm had a reputation for handling high-profile clients, but there were whispers online, anonymous reviews on legal forums, disgruntled former clients hinting at ethical lapses. Nothing concrete, but enough to plant a seed. I contacted a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop named Mike who advertised discreet services online. I met him in a dive bar, handed over a stack of cash, and gave him James's name. "Find dirt," I said. "Anything I can use." Mike didn't ask questions, just nodded and promised results within a week. While I waited, I kept watching Claire. She was radiant, oblivious, planning her escape with James. I wondered what she saw in him. Was it his money, his confidence, the thrill of something new? I'd loved her for her mind, her laugh, the way she'd challenged me to be better. Had that ever been enough for her? I didn't know anymore, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. Mike came through 5 days later. We met in the same bar, and he slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were documents, financial records, emails, a disciplinary report from James's law school days, long buried but not erased. He'd been caught fabricating evidence in a mock trial, nearly expelled. More recent were client complaints, hushed up by his firm, about overbilling and conflicts of interest. Nothing illegal enough to ruin him, but enough to raise eyebrows. Mike also found a connection to a local journalist, a woman named Sarah who'd written puff pieces about James's firm. She was hungry for a scoop, Mike said, and owed him a favor. I thanked Mike, paid him the rest of his fee, and drove home with the envelope burning a hole in my passenger seat. This was it, the foundation of my revenge. I wouldn't just confront Claire and James. I'd dismantle their lives, piece by piece, until they had nothing left to hold on to. The cabin weekend was 2 weeks away. I had time to refine my plan to make it perfect. I'd start with James's career, planting seeds of doubt with his clients, his colleagues, maybe even the bar association. Sarah the journalist would be my megaphone, amplifying every whisper until it was a roar. As for Claire, I'd let her go to the cabin. I'd let her think she'd won, that she could have her secret life and keep me in the dark. Then, when she least expected it, I'd pull the rug out. I didn't know the exact shape of her punishment yet, but it would be cruel, precise, and unforgettable. She'd betrayed me, and I'd make sure she paid a price she couldn't ignore. The morning of Claire's getaway dawned crisp and clear, the kind of autumn day that used to make us plan hikes or lazy brunches. Now it felt like the prelude to a storm. I watched her pack from the doorway of our bedroom, my face a mask of indifference. She hummed softly, folding that new dress, the emerald green one she'd bought for James, into her suitcase. Her movements were precise, almost reverent, as if she were preparing for a sacred ritual. I wanted to grab the suitcase, fling it across the room, and scream the truth in her face. Instead, I said, "Have fun with your sister." My voice flat, and she smiled without looking up. "Thanks, Dan. I'll be back Sunday night." She left at noon, her car disappearing down the street, the GPS tracker's signal pulsing on my phone. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. I knew exactly where she was going and who she'd be with. The cabin in the mountains, their secret haven, was waiting. So was I, though not in the way they'd expect. My plan was in motion, a machine I'd spent weeks building, its gears now turning with a relentless precision. I'd spent the last 2 weeks finalizing every detail, tying up loose ends, and planting the seeds that would bloom into their destruction. Today was the harvest. I started with James. His professional life was a house of cards, and I'd found just the right breeze to knock it down. Sarah, the journalist Mike had connected me with, was eager to dig into the dirt I'd provided. I'd met her 3 days ago in a coffee shop, handing over a flash drive with Mike's findings. The law school disciplinary report, the client complaints, the questionable billing records. I'd added my own touch, a forged email, crafted with help from a tech-savvy friend, suggesting James had leaked confidential client data to a rival firm. It wasn't airtight, but it didn't need to be. Sarah's article didn't need proof, just enough smoke to start a fire. She promised to publish that weekend, timed perfectly with Claire and James's getaway. By Monday, his firm would be fielding calls from angry clients, and the bar association would be sniffing around. His reputation, that polished veneer he wore like armor, would crack. But that was just the opening salvo. I wanted James to feel the ground shift beneath him, to lose not just his career but his sense of control. I'd learned his routines, his habits, and I'd found a way to hit him closer to home. His condo, that sleek downtown fortress, had a weakness. The doorman, a guy named Eddie who worked the night shift. Eddie, it turned out, was a gambler with a debt problem. A few $100 and a bottle of whiskey bought me his cooperation. Last night, while James was at a client dinner, Eddie let me into the building. I didn't touch James's apartment, just left a subtle mark. A photo of Claire and me, taken on our honeymoon, slipped under his door. No note, no explanation. Just enough to make him wonder, to plant a seed of paranoia. I wanted him looking over his shoulder, questioning her, questioning everything. Claire's punishment was more complex. I'd considered confronting her at the cabin, bursting in like a vengeful specter, but that was too crude, too fleeting. I wanted her to unravel slowly, to feel the weight of her choices crush her piece by piece. Divorce was inevitable, but it wasn't enough. I needed her to lose something deeper, her sense of self, her belief that she could slip away unscathed. I'd spent hours thinking about what she valued most. Her career, her reputation, her freedom. In the end, I realized it was her control, her ability to shape her narrative. Claire was a storyteller, a marketer who spun truths for a living. I'd take that from her, expose her lies, and leave her with nowhere to hide. The first step was already in place. I'd contacted her boss, Karen, under the guise of a concerned colleague. I used a burner phone and a fake email, tipping Karen off about Claire's unprofessional conduct with a client's lawyer, James, though I didn't name him directly. I included a photo from my dossier, one of them at that rooftop bar, their hands entwined. Karen was a stickler for ethics, and Claire's firm had a strict policy against fraternizing with clients' representatives. The tip wouldn't get Claire fired outright, but it would trigger an internal review, a shadow over her career that would follow her for years. Karen's response, which I intercepted through Claire's work email, was curt, "We'll look into it." By Monday, Claire would be called into a meeting, her professional world tilting just as James's was. But that was only the beginning. I wanted Claire to face her betrayal head-on, to see it reflected back at her in a way she couldn't ignore. I'd rented a billboard on the highway she'd take back from the cabin, a giant screen looming over the road. It wasn't cheap, but it was worth every cent. The image was simple, a collage of photos from my dossier. Her with James, laughing, kissing, their secret moments laid bare. No names, no accusations, just the truth in vivid color. Below the images, a single line of text. Asterisk, "What's the story, Claire?" Asterisk, it was a phrase she'd used in our early days, when she'd tease me about my engineering reports, urging me to find the human angle. Now it would be her undoing. She'd drive past it Sunday night, her heart in her throat, knowing the world could see her shame. The billboard company had assured me it would be up by tomorrow evening, timed for maximum impact. I spent the rest of the weekend at home, the house empty and cold without her. I didn't drink or distract myself with TV. I worked, refining the final piece of my plan, the video. I'd compiled every piece of evidence, texts, emails, receipts, photos, into a montage, set to the jazz we used to love, Billie Holiday's voice haunting the silence. The video was brutal, a chronicle of her affair laid bare. I burned it onto a DVD, old school but effective, and addressed it to her parents, her sister, and her closest friends. I didn't mail them yet. I'd wait until after the billboard, when she was already reeling. The video wasn't just for her. It was for her inner circle, the people whose approval she'd always craved. They'd see her, not as the perfect daughter or friend, but as a liar who destroyed her marriage for a cheap thrill. Saturday night, while Claire and James were likely tangled in that cabin, I drove to the highway to check the billboard site. The old ad was still up, but the crew was prepping the new one, my collage waiting in their system. I stood by the roadside, the wind tugging at my coat, and felt a flicker of doubt. Was this too far? Was I becoming someone I didn't recognize? But then I remembered the mark on her neck, the way she'd kissed me with lies, the way he'd chosen him. The doubt burned away, replaced by resolve. She'd made her bed. Now she'd lie in it. Sunday morning, I got a text from Sarah. The article was trending on X. Posts dissected James's career, his name dragged through by anonymous accounts I'd nudged into action. By noon, his firm had issued a second statement, promising a thorough investigation. I imagined him seeing it, his smug grin fading, his world cracking. Claire, still at the cabin, wouldn't know yet, but she'd feel the ripples soon. I checked her GPS. She was still there. Her car hadn't moved. I pictured them arguing, maybe sensing something was off after the photo I'd left at his condo. Good. Let them squirm. That evening, I drove to a hill overlooking the highway, a vantage point to watch Claire's return. The billboard was up, glowing in the dusk, her face and James's larger than life. I waited, my car hidden in the shadows, until I saw her sedan pass below. She slowed, her brake lights flaring, and stopped on the shoulder. I couldn't see her face, but I imagined it. Shock, horror, the realization that her secret was exposed. She sat there for 10 minutes, then sped off, her car weaving. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. The trap was sprung. When she got home, I wasn't there. I'd left another note. Asterisk, I know. We're done. Asterisk, I'd packed a bag and checked into a different motel, my lawyer already prepping divorce papers. The DVDs were mailed Monday morning, landing in her family's mailboxes by Tuesday. Her phone blew up with calls, texts, her mother's voice tearful, her sister's furious. I didn't answer her calls. I didn't need to hear her excuses. James's firm suspended him pending the investigation. Sarah's article had sparked a feeding frenzy, clients pulling contracts, his name poison in legal circles. Claire's firm demoted her after the ethics review. Her career stalled, her reputation tarnished. They both lost what they'd valued most, their control, their carefully curated lives. I didn't stop there. I leaked the dossier to James's ex-wife, Laura, who used it to reopen their divorce case, claiming he'd hidden assets. The legal battle would drain him dry. Months later, I'm in a new place, a small house by the coast. The divorce is final, the house sold, the past a scar that's fading. Claire tried reaching out once, a letter full of apologies, but I burned it to ash. James is a shadow of himself, working as a low-rent attorney in a strip mall office. They're still together, I hear, but it's a bitter, broken thing, built on the ruins I left behind. I don't feel triumph, just a hollow piece. I destroyed them, but I'm not whole. Maybe I never will be. But they'll carry their shame forever, and that's enough.